Portugal is a very beautiful and peaceful country with a very stable economic and political situation.
A country with huge potential, huge opportunities. We have a very dedicated workforce, highly trained.
Portugal has a lot of good engineering schools all over the country, and the competition is quite low compared with other countries in Europe.
Portugal has a lot of very good universities. We have a lot of good people aiming for new technologies, new challenges, new products, and the breakthrough of industry.
We came here in Portugal because of the dynamic of the market. As I mentioned, we have hired 800 engineers in less than 3 years. It really shows how dynamic is the market, how entrepreneurial is the environment, and that was really important to build our IT center.
When we recruited lately all these engineers, we were capable of setting up a team of 15 nationalities, all recruited in Portugal. And obviously, the majority of them were Portuguese, but there were a lot of foreigners already living in Portugal due to the amazing quality of life that you have here in the country.
The other reason why we came here, it was because of the international mindset. We are covering operation on 38 countries. And it was important to have people who do have that international mindset, but also who do speak English and other foreign language. And we found that here in Portugal.
The Portuguese people are not only friendly, but they're great linguists. And that, in today's world, is very important, the ability to be able to communicate directly with visitors that are coming from all corners of the planet to discover the beautiful and safe country of Portugal.
We have the people, the know-how, and the willingness to learn.
There's a massive pool of talent for people that on the position that we want to fill. So this makes it basically a no-brainer of investing in Portugal at this moment. So if you're considering, for us the experience was great. So think about it. It might be a very good opportunity.
Hello and welcome to another webinar hosted by AICEP. I would like to say a big sorry for this delay. We had to face some unforeseen technical issues, and that is why we're starting a little bit of delay. But the theme that brings us here today is of high importance, and we hope that it will be of interest to all of you watching us from the comfort of your home or office. Today we'll be talking about investment in Portugal, namely the business service sector. During this one-hour event, we'll be presenting the latest study conducted in partnership with IDC and Nova University on this sector, who is present in the country, why they have chosen Portugal, and what are our key competitive factors. I would also like to say a big thank you to all the companies that supported our partners during this process, and without whom we would not be here today to present the event. As we are facing uncertain times throughout the world, it brings us quite a comfort to know that Portugal is still attracting new projects in these times. New companies are still choosing Portugal to locate new business and service sectors. And without no further delay, I'll introduce Mr. Luís Castro Henriques, AICEP chairman, who will present us the big numbers of this sector and also provide us why the companies are choosing Portugal.
Thank you, Luís, and thank you for your introduction and for setting up the tone regarding the future interventions during this webinar. First, let me thank our partners who are here, IDC, Nova IMS, that worked with us on this study. And this is a very, very interesting study. I think we'll be providing updated information to our current customers and to our prospective customers with clearly larger knowledge on the sector and what is going on in Portugal. But also enormous thank you to Thales, who is here today with us. And I use this by also thanking all the companies that participated in the survey, and above all the companies that have invested, just like Thales and all of our other customers that have invested in Portugal, for placing their trust in the country. But above all, I think they should be congratulated for taking an excellent decision. And that's what we'll be showing during this session, is that Portugal really is a great spot and has a sweet spot for service centers and for development and competency centers. And so I'll give you a short overview of the sector. I'll also share some of the views that we have of the competitiveness of Portugal on this area. But overall, a general overall overview on the sector. And then we'll also leave you with some ideas on how this will be and how Portugal is maintaining and will be maintaining its competitive edge regarding the shared service center arena. First of all, this survey, we document here the life and the investments of about 142 companies in Portugal. All of these service centers are exporting centers out of Portugal. Some of these companies have more than one site, so they also represent 160 sites across the country. And they represent almost 60,000 employees, which confirmed what AICEP had been saying for the past few years regarding the size of the sector in Portugal. On top of that, it's also interesting to understand that, on average, these centers represent about 370 employees, each one of them. Now, if you'll see our recent track record starting just in 2017, you'll see that Portugal really has been attracting major players, extremely competitive players to the country. We also see that there is further specialization and further higher value added on the services that are provided out of Portugal. And we also see that there is a growing space and I'd say a growing interest, especially on the software development side. Portugal is extremely competitive for all of these activities, but I think in the software development and in certain service sub-segments, we are extremely competitive, and definitely Portugal has been the right and adequate choice for all of these companies. And you can see all of these companies are basically household names of global companies around the world and that have chosen Portugal as its destination for some of the shared service centers. This study also, I think, takes out some of the ideas that most people have regarding the sector in Portugal. Most people think that the sector is highly concentrated in Lisbon, but it's not a fact. What we see is that Porto already has a relevant number of centers, a very, very relevant number of employees, but also outside of Lisbon and Porto, we have more and more centers showing up. Just to give you two figures, in Oporto, the service sector is growing at a 40% growth rate, and outside of Oporto, above 30%. So basically, this shows that, as would be expected, the sector has started, obviously, in the capital city, in Lisbon, but then has grown into Oporto, which is our second largest city, and gradually is obviously covering all of the country. Now, the question is, will Portugal maintaining this for the future? And the answer is yes. We have almost 400,000 students that are enrolled in higher education, which represents about 80,000 graduates every year. But on top of that, we also have 53,000 foreign students that choose Portugal. And this also obviously increases the pool of talent that we have over here. The other thing that I think is also very, very important is how competitive is this talent? And look at what the rankings say on Portugal. Well, you'll see that we rank very, very well in terms of skilled labor. We rank extremely well in terms of language skills and in terms of English proficiency. But I think above all, this shows how highly qualified are people that are trained in Portugal, in our university system and in our research system, but also how open they are to work with others around the world. Why do all these kids learn at least 2 foreign languages? Well, basically because they want to work in a global environment, in an international environment. And so that's why our young, talented pool of labor force really represents a competitive edge for your companies and for your activities over here. Now, just to finish, let me leave you with 3 key ideas regarding Portugal. First, Portugal is has the second highest rate of engineering graduates in Europe. We're 12th in terms of English proficiency, and 40% of foreign students in higher education. And this is a growing number at a 2-digit rate. So basically, we have here the condiments for a great solution for your services activities in Portugal. So I hope that for all the investors that are already here, they keep on investing. Our experience tells us that most of them start with 50, 100 people, and as you have seen, on average, we'll have about 370. But above all, and to really finish, you can count on AICEP to handle all of your inquiries, to partner up with you for your fact-finding visits, identify the best location for your activity, and also identify if any incentives apply to your activity. Always think of AICEP, the Trade and Investment Agency, basically as the solution provider for your location. We will always try to match you with your requirements. We don't have a prescriptive approach. Our approach really is to maximize the value for our customers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Castro Henriques, for sharing with us what are the key advantages Portugal has to offer to this industry. To our viewers at home, please feel free to send out any questions that you may have to the attendees here. You can use our email, which is investinportugal@portugalglobal.pt. And at the end of the session, we will try to present the most interesting questions to our attendees. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Gabriel Coimbra, Vice President for EMEA at IDC Portugal. IDC was one of the partners that supported us on this study, and he will now introduce the study and its big results.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Luis. Thank you very much, everyone, and good afternoon. So it's a pleasure to be here, and it was really a pleasure to do this study with Nova IMS and the Portuguese Trades and Investment Agency. As you know, IDC is a global company, and we have been working with IT companies, helping them selecting the best place to have their business centers. But it was the first time we did a survey, study, asked by a national trade and investment agency, asking us to give voice to the business service centers in Portugal. So it was really a different approach, and this study is really the voice of the customers, the business centers that are in Portugal. So the study tried to respond to these questions. So what are the main reasons to choose Portugal? What are the countries and regions served from Portugal? Key industries investing in Portugal, main activities delivered from here, best practice in terms of recruitment, and of course the level of satisfaction, and what are the plans for the next few years. So I will go quickly through these questions. I will try to answer them to you. So first, let me just explain a little bit the methodology. So basically, we look at to all business centers in Portugal. So we saw 140 companies, and we invited all of them to respond a survey, and 74 responded very quickly. So we were able to develop this study. We also interviewed personally 8 of these business centers. So it gave us a very good overview of the market. So the first question was really why Portugal, and we see here basically that the talent and the cost of the talent is the key reason for choosing Portugal. So I would say these three first reasons are one reason. So it's the balance between having the right talent at a good cost, a good price. So it's the main reason. So more than 2/3 are having this reason. So then, of course, we have other reasons. The geographic location is to attract foreign talent, is to start operation, plant facilities operating in Portugal. So many other reasons, but in fact, the talent and the price of the talent, so the best value for money in terms of talent in Portugal. So moving forward, we try to understand also this trend. So we saw that in fact in the last 4 years we had 44% of centers established. So a very strong dynamic in the past 4 years. So in the beginning, as mentioned by the AICEP chairman, in fact the capital Lisbon was the first place, but we see today not only in Lisbon but in Porto, the second big city, and other cities hosting the business service centers in Portugal. We look at also not only to the number of centers, but the number of people employed. And as you can see here, Lisbon is still growing, and it's still growing double digit. But we see in Porto 41% growth from looking to the last year, comparing to last year, and also other regions growing 36%. So not only growing in terms of number of sites, but in terms of number of full-time employees in these business centers. Then we look at the organization. So basically, we saw that we have here, and as we saw before in the first presentation, some big brands. So normally we have in Portugal large organizations, of course, mainly from Europe. You see here Germany, France, but we also see and especially in the past 2, 3, 4 years, companies from US, from North America, and also from Asia coming to Portugal. Then we look into the industries. Basically, we have one that this is manufacturing. 38% of them are manufacturing companies, and then we have 21%, and we really saw this big growth around software development and IT in general. So information technology sector is representing more than 150 of the business centers in Portugal. But then we have also companies from other industries represented here in Portugal. Then we look at to how these business centers are doing business today, and as it was mentioned before, basically we are looking to business centers that are providing services for outside Portugal, and we see companies providing internally services for around the world, but we also see companies serving other companies, and a kind of mix of these two approaches. Basically, we saw that we have, of course, companies from around the world, and these companies are serving many more regions and many more countries. We see more than half of them are serving worldwide operations, and the other half is serving or multi-regional or regional operations. So we see then in the right the detail about the countries. So of course Europe, but you see in Americas and Asia a lot of countries being served by business centers in Portugal. So the global coverage in terms of language, We see here, and it was also mentioned in the first presentation, really the language is something that the Portuguese market can handle very well. The English, almost all business centers working in English, more of course than Portuguese, but then we see this many other languages being used in business centers in Portugal. We see that 1/3 of the business centers are working with 6 or more languages, and the others are working normally with 2 or more. So in terms of information technology, and I mentioned that in fact this is an area that have been growing a lot in the past 4 years, and we see here how many full-time employees these business services have in Portugal in terms of functions, IT functions. You see IT and software development 27%, but then you also see the other functions, the finance and accounting, customer service, other specific IT related, and other functions. But in fact, what we see is really IT very strong, and then finance and accounting, and then we see other functions below. So this is an overview of the functions, all the functions. As I mentioned, the IT function is really growing, and we see here some detail about the specific programming language being used in Portugal, in business centers in Portugal. We see the traditional SQL and Java and HTML, but we also see new programming languages like Python and others being used in many business centers in Portugal. So this is really the sector that have been growing in Portugal. So talking a little bit more about the talent, what we see. Really, the talent is key for business centers in Portugal, and we look at how the talent is split by gender, by age, and we really see a young and high educated talent in these business centers in Portugal. We also see interesting gender equality. 43% of them are women, female works. So very balanced talent distribution around age and gender, but in fact talent is the main challenge, and I think it's the main challenge not only in Portugal but worldwide, and it's really here clear that it's a challenge. 74% is saying that, but what we see, and we try to look at to best practice around managing, retaining, and getting the best talent for the business centers in Portugal. And basically what we see here is that there is a big cooperation between business centers in Portugal and the universities. 75% then work together, have this cooperation. A lot of them are using training and career development, recruitment agencies, social media, and other more traditional ways to recruit and retain talent. So, looking a little bit deeper in terms of how these business centers are doing in order to keep the best talent, we have the traditional benefits like health insurance and performance bonus, but we also see things like flexible hours and life insurance, leisure and sport. So we see really here that business service centers are taking the best of what Portugal has to offer, the climate and all the other activities that can be done after hours. So this is the general context. Then we try to, in the end, to understand what are the satisfaction level. So all of them referred to us that they were satisfied. At least no one not satisfied with the operations in Portugal, and more than 2/3 very satisfied with the organization in Portugal. To finish, basically, we try to understand what will happen in the near future. So the future looks bright for business service centers in Portugal. 79% saying that they will increase the scope of functions provided. 77% will increase the number of full-time employees. They will introduce, of course, robotics, RPAs, but then we see the increase of the number of clients, of course, the stability of the operation, but then we see increase in geographic coverage, and also business centers saying that they will open new centers in Portugal. So this is a quickly overview of the study. I know that the AICEP, the Portuguese Trade and Investment Agency, will be able to share with you by email the full report. Just send them an email. And with this, I would like to thank you and give the word back to Luis. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabriel, for all of your support and IDC support on this study. Very interesting results, a very detailed survey. And now, a common aspect of this report is talent. Talent is, and it's very clear from the result of this survey, that plays a significant role for this industry and for the success of its operations in Portugal. And of course, universities are the right partners to develop the right talent, the right set of skills for these operations in Portugal. And here now I have Fernando from the Nova University here in Lisbon, and he will show us and tell us how universities are adjusting to the needs and the challenges the industry is bringing to us today. Fernando?
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, let me thank AICEP for the invitation to take part on this study, and also to be here in this event. I also want to thank IDC, I think that's how you should talk, IDC, for the invitation to collaborate on the study. So I think that during this session we already established that talent is the key word, and that universities have a role to play in this talent issue. So being an academic, what I will try to do during my presentation is to, talk about two things. One is the changes that have been happening in the higher education system in Portugal. And the second one, from my own experience, what are some interesting points in the relation between business service centers and universities in Portugal. And so I'll try to make some points also about that, because I have some experience in that respect. So this is the agenda. So the first part is about the changes in the Portuguese education landscape, and also the second part is on how to attract and retain talent. As you can see, I'm an academic because my presentation is not as graphically spectacular as my previous colleagues, but in any case, let's hope it's good. So the first trend in the Portuguese education is higher education is growth. I've took the year in which I finished my undergraduate degree and compared the numbers between then and now. So between 91 and 2019, the number of Portuguese students in the higher education system grew more than 100%. So it more than doubled in this period. So as Luis said before, we have around 4,500 students in the system. Another interesting thing is that Portuguese students seem to have a keen interest in engineering, because as you can see there, the second set of bars shows the progress in engineering courses. And they grow even more than the average courses in Portugal. So there's not only probably an interest in these areas, but also a more pragmatic approach on the side of the students looking for qualifications that really have traction in the market. One of the things that sometimes happens is that when things grow, they lose quality. And so it might be a concern that, higher education has grown a lot in Portugal, but what about the quality? And I'm very happy to report that quality not only maintained, in fact, it increased very significantly. Now, when we talk about the quality of a university, we have to look at the research side of the university, right? And as you can see here, this is there are many different indicators that I could use, but I decided to use this because I think it's most interesting for the audience here. Here you can see the growth in the number of publications in index journals, scientific journals, in the engineering area in Portugal. So as you can see, it's a very significant increase, Portugal nowadays ranks as the 20th scientific journal articles publicator, let's say it like this. So in a group of 125 countries. Not only the output increased, but also the quality of the output has become better. So here I have something that is usually used to assess the quality of the publications, which is the citation impact of the scientific publications. And as you can see, engineering in Portugal is above the average in Europe at 28 countries, or even in Europe as at 15 countries. So our engineering attracts more, or our scientific publications in engineering attract more interest than the average in Europe. My final point is that because of all these two previous points, the attractiveness of the Portuguese higher education also increased, not only because of this, but also because of some other changes that happened mostly by the beginning of this century. So in the beginning of the 2000s, we had what you might know and usually called Bologna process, which was a huge effort across Europe to have a common structure in the higher education in all European countries. Obviously, this promoted mobility across Europe, but also it improved the attractiveness of the European higher education system. And by that way, also helped Portugal increase its own attractiveness. In Portugal, I think one of the, let's say, things that didn't change with different governments is this idea that higher education is a strategic area, and the internationalization of higher education is a goal of the country. It's very important for the country, and so there have been steps taken in that direction, and two of the most important ones are the creation of this agency for the accreditation and evaluation of higher education courses, and also the development of what is called an international student statute, meaning that everybody in the world can come to study in Portugal, and they have their own specific access to the higher education system. And so this has increased a lot our ability to serve students from all around the world. Now, with this, also our universities became more aware of the importance of being in the rankings, participating in this overall world industry, which is higher education. And I think just yesterday or the day before, the School of Management in my university has ranked at 14th place in management schools in Europe. My school, we have a master's course which is ranked as the first in the world in this area, which is information management and business intelligence. And so these are just the examples I know. Obviously, I talk about my own reality, but there are plenty more in the Portuguese higher education system. As Luis said before, we have around 50,000 foreign students studying in Portugal today, and they are about 13% of the overall population. But if we consider just the master courses, this percentage grows to 20%. So 20% of the overall master students in Portugal are foreign students. And in my school, we have an example which I bring here, but before that, I need to tell you about this. So this increase is not mainly due to the increase in mobility students, what we usually call the Erasmus students that come here for a semester and then go home. No, the main increase is from students that come here to complete a full course, a full degree. Okay, so that's the main difference from 2015-16 to now. As I was saying, we have an example of a master course that we have at my school, a master in data science and advanced analytics, in which more than half of the students are foreigners. So they come from 45 different countries. As you can see, the distribution, so the biggest number of students comes from Brazil, but 9% of them also come from Germany, they come from Italy, Colombia, the United States, and so on and so forth. And you can see their testimonies in this webpage, and probably it's worth listening to what they say about their experience here in Portugal. Another thing which is important to note here is that all of these students, so these are alumni of this course, all of them work for big, well-known companies like Apple, Volkswagen, SAS, which is a big software company in the area of data science, and they have nice stories to tell about Portugal. So I will now shift gears to talk a little bit about attracting and retaining talent. And at least from my own view and my own perspective, I don't work in a business service center, so I work in the university, but I have had the experience of trying to serve business service centers with talent. And what I'm going to present is mostly out of my own experience. So the first thing that I think young people value in business service centers when they choose where they should go work is first the strong brands, the strong global brands that usually come here with and locate business service centers. So this is very important for these young people. The second thing is the feeling that what they do, their work, their everyday work has a global impact, not only in Portugal but also worldwide. Obviously, they like to work in cutting-edge technology. Everybody does. They think that these companies give them more opportunities to learn, which is something that they really value. I think this generation, at least from my perspective, they value learning more than previous generations. So they need to feel that they are improving their knowledge, improving their opportunities. Obviously, having the possibility of pursuing an international career is also very appealing to these young people. And finally, the multicultural environment that they will find in the typical business service center. Now, in terms of recruiting strategies, what I've seen is, or what I think it's important for a business service center is, the first one is to build or to make an effort to build a strong employer brand. What I mean by this is to appear as a good place to work. This is an effort that needs to be done by everybody, but I think that service centers can benefit a lot from this marketing and these strategies. The other thing I think may be important when coming to Portugal is to have a plan of growth. Meaning that if you know that in 1 or 2 years you'll be needing more 200 or 300 engineers, it's worth to start from the first day working on that strategy to acquire and to attract talent. So having a plan of how things are going to develop might be very important. Obviously, in the relation with universities, there are always these campus recruitment events, but this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the relation with universities. And the thing that I think are more important for business service centers in the relation with universities is to have a perspective of building a long-term partnership. It's not a one-off event in the recruiting campus or whatever. Is to make an effort to work as partners in this problem of attracting talent, and this can include collaborating in teaching programs. So, for instance, we have companies that go to my school and they teach for one lesson about that specific topic, like smart cities is done by Siemens or things like that. And we are always very happy to invite people from industry to help us with specific topics. Offer summer internships. So offering the opportunity for students to go and work during the summer vacations and to get a feel of how it is to work in the company. Sponsoring and participating in summer and spring schools. This is always a great opportunity to identify, especially in the area of software, identify good programmers, people that think very well logically and are worth having. Then there are these hackathons and datatons that we also develop. I would like to highlight this last part, which is related with upskill and reskill. So we always talk about, is there enough talent in Portugal? Is it going to be a problem? I don't think so, for many reasons. One of them is that I have many of my Portuguese students going abroad because they cannot find a challenging career here in Portugal. But there's also another opportunity, which I think is very important, which is the challenge of reskilling young people that are not engineers, but they have a huge enthusiasm for technology and information technology. They also have the knowledge, they just don't have the accreditation, let's say like this. And these are this can be a great pool to attract really good and motivated talent. Finally, we also, or business service centers also have the opportunity to approach universities to create university programs, not masters or PhD programs, but post-graduation programs in which, in a partnership, both entities will develop the education of these students. So, for instance, we have an example that we developed with BNP Paribas. We are also working on a project with Siemens, the Siemens Tech Hub here in Lisbon. And in this specific case with BNP Paribas, what we did was we made a partnership and created a postgraduate program. And this postgraduate program was running through 1 year. And during this year, the students were working at BNP, and also at the same time having lessons or having courses at our university. Some of these courses were taught by professionals from BNP. Things like, I have it here, banking processes, for instance. These were taught by people from BNP Paribas, or quality assurance methodology. All of these specific courses that were important for BNP to have in this program were taught by their own professionals. So, in conclusion, I'll be very quick. I think I'm on time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Education in Portugal, especially higher education, has changed very significantly in the last decades. Not only its growth, but also the scientific output and the attractiveness of the system has improved a lot. Portugal is a small, open country with a very welcoming attitude towards foreigners. And we feel that also in the way our foreign students are received. And so it's I would say, a cosmopolitan country in the sense that we welcome very different cultures. And so this may be a very important aspect in choosing Portugal. Finally, I think that if business centers are looking for talent, they should find their university partner. I'm not saying that you should come to Nova. There are plenty of different universities in Portugal. You should find one or two with whom you want to work, and then be consistent in the work. And being consistent is developing several initiatives, not just going once a year to the campus to show that you have a lot of opportunities to work. One last thing is that all of these are very dependent on personal relations. And so sometimes it's the difficult part is to find the appropriate focal point in the university or in the business service center, which are willing and enthusiastic about developing this partnership. So it's important to find this person or this focal point, to keep them as focal points, and then to develop a relation of trust and familiarity, which usually helps a lot in many different situations and problems. And that's all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you, Fernando, for a very detailed presentation. Quite interesting to have learned about all the changes that were managed by the Portuguese education system and its ability to adjust to the challenges and the demands of the industry. We've been talking a lot about Portugal, the sector, the challenges, our advantage points, but let's now hear from the investor's perspective. And now I have here with me Deborah Whitney, Managing Director and CFO from Thales GBS, and she will give us her insights and challenges she faced when Thales created their operation in Portugal. Deborah?
Thank you, Luis. It's my pleasure to be here today to take the business perspective, perhaps to explain how we took the wealth of information that you've seen today and actually turned that into part of the mechanics to make a decision, and how Thales answered that question 3 years ago on why Portugal, because we actually chose Portugal. And like any business investment, it's a serious affair. Shared service centres are by definition part of your business. They're usually a autonomous sector in its own right. And we have to deliver on benefit and value to the business. So how did we choose Portugal? Well, we set 6 broad evaluation categories. And you will see some of the information you've seen today coming in as how we managed to evaluate that to our own focus of objectives and to actually determine the right location for Thales. Now, Thales is a large multinational with a global presence of 80,000 professional staff and many more flex in and out to our contractual high-tech projects. So it was an important position for Thales to actually have a criteria where it was robust, it would stand up to governance and challenge. Now, the 6 criteria we chose, first and foremost, we looked at the general and economic environment. We considered this really to be around the risk objective. So we trawled across the world looking at political stability, political roots, the associations those countries have as known trade, with known trade footprints. The showstopper there would really be political instability. So that was an important thing, as you would expect with any large investment. Our second categorization group was around infrastructure and geography. Now, this was really around the quality point as a focus for the objective. And as with the previous point, we weighted both of these points at around 12.5% of our total evaluation scoring. Here we're looking at can we get there quickly enough? Because we are multinational. Whilst we can do things in great ways remotely, we still need to be able to be part of the wider business. So infrastructure from a point of getting there, getting around where we were, how quickly can we get there? It would be lovely to have a shared service centre in Machu Picchu, but you'd never get there and you'd have a few problems on your general infrastructure around ISIT. And all the things that we heard about talent might be lacking as well. Again, another important evaluation point, our third evaluation point, and this, surprising to those that haven't actually gone through their own shared service journey yet, is that we weighted this at 20% and not higher, was the financial attractiveness. Cost reduction alone is not a sustainable position for any business. We needed to be able to build on the investment. We needed to work on effectiveness and efficiency, not just lower the cost base. But undoubtedly, here one of the areas we were looking at was the average salary costs. How welcoming to new business is the local environment. Portugal scored particularly well there. They're very welcoming. As AICEP say, that they're there to actually answer questions. It's not often you can get to a body that isn't effectively its own company selling something. So that was an incredible valuable position for us to tap that resource. But only 20% did we place that as an important area of our decision making. An equal 20%, and I'd say just a little bit more, was the labour force, because you can't just build it and expect them to come. We needed a labour force that matched our needs, and our needs were really, we wanted to offer careers, not jobs. A lot of what we do before we can automate, before we can use all the great technology of RPAs and similar applications, involves people doing things. And sometimes that's not so exciting if we think about financial accounting, transactions management. The excitement comes in how they can work, use their investment in their own education to do things differently, to take what is a manual position and turn it into an automated position, how to put value into that process, no matter what the process is, how to do it better, how to give more value. And that sort of person is not easy to find. Although, having said that, we found it. And having the right labour force pool to pull against, mostly for us it was the graduate pool. And we did actually do all the things that we were suggested, forming relationships. I am often seen on my soapbox at a university, usually going through the explanations of why a shared service, but in this case we've assumed that you have gone through that evaluation process, and now you're looking at location. So again, from a quality perspective, having the right people at the right time is absolutely key. We then looked, interestingly, 15% weighting for us on this point, was the SSC and industry experience. Another thing we wouldn't get if we located in Machu Picchu, a lovely place, sorry, it's just in my mind now, is that we would not have other shared services to talk to. What was your experience? How was your journey? How has it been for you? And this is where AICEP helped us get introductions. We had some of our own, and it was actually a very important part of our process as to why to choose any location was, how is it going for other businesses in the same area? It's an interesting point, because if you overbalance, if it's overpulled, if the labour force is overstretched to complete that, then you have you're on the wrong side of the curve. But for many reasons, we are nowhere near that the height of that curve at the moment. And in actual fact, we can see from all the things we just heard from Nova that curve will push out. So that was another important point on quality for us, was could we talk to people, could we learn from their mistakes perhaps, but also to get insight on we have a plan, but what was it really like? What were the real pain points? And I'm delighted to say, having valued the support from the trade industry group in gaining that information, I'm now in a position to invite other prospective businesses to come and learn from our mistakes. Not so much, we haven't made so many, but that's an important point for us, that group. There's another side to it which says, actually, one of the values of a shared service is that it can flex its business needs very quickly, up or down, depending on its business's needs. And where you're in a cluster of fellow shared services, the probability of you all wanting to downsize or upsize at the same time are slim. So we have this associated pool that means that we can better look after our talent if we need them to take a sabbatical for a year or a secondment to another business. And they come back with even better ideas. So many advantages to being part of a gang, and it's quite a tribe now, as you hear. And the last value point for us was a 20% weighting around Thales's needs, our own business needs, which covers all the gambits of cost, quality, risk. So that in this case, it was we knew that one of our service differentiators really would be our ability to communicate in the mother tongue. Because we cover finance and accounting and also procurement activities today. We started small, build an appetite within the business, and let success build success. But having done that, we knew that culturally we needed people that were a good cultural understander, and also had the linguistic skills to allow us to go that extra mile. And I think that's one thing that has been particularly noticeable. As for somebody who had the pleasure of moving to Portugal to start this 3 years ago, with very little knowledge of Portuguese, it was a great pleasure to me that everybody I met spoke better English than I did. And they are multilingual. They genuinely, if they speak English, they'll speak Spanish, they'll speak German, and this is before you tap that very large expat market where you've got the people coming in who have come to study, and it's a hard country to leave, and stayed and want to build their career here. So that has absolutely been a winning element of our business model. So that's how we made the decision. Why Portugal? How's it gone? Not bad at all. We've met our deadlines. We've had the right people in at the right time. We've done better than our competitors, probably through learning their mistakes with retention. As one of the key factors we hear is that people want to contribute. They want to make a difference. I joke that the millennials that we employ really know everything better than I do as far as they're concerned. And they are entirely prepared to tell me, which is great because they embrace change, they drive change, they do it in such a polite way. And it really, they've opened my eyes. I've learned as much from them as they have learned from us. And I think also that puts us in a very strong position to continue to build. And we do have plans. We will double our size within the next 18 months, and we will probably increase our activity coverage. So that's Thales's, a brief rundown of Thales's position. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, Deborah, thank you so much for your testimony. I'm glad that you chose us over Machu Picchu. I think it will be quite interesting to have a sign on the top of the hill, but those 5 hours hiking throughout the mountains could be quite a challenge to retain the people.
It could be a problem.
But it's so good to hear your feedback and your testimony. To all of our viewers at home, should you be interested in getting a copy of our study, just drop us an email at investinportugal.portugalglobal.pt, and we'll be gladly to send a free copy. And now we'll start with question and answers, and I'll ask Deborah not to leave, and as I have a couple of questions for her. And I'll speak about your testimony. Mm-hmm. Your testimony confirms the importance of the location and the availability of skill and talent. Without it, you would have not been successful. You mentioned you had the right people at the right time, and you have learned a lot from them. In addition to those within the Thales groups, who can better contribute to the sustainability and success of the operation in Portugal?
Not quite getting the question there. It's probably my misunderstanding of the English. But who from within Portugal can support
those within the Thales.
Within Thales Group? Yes. Oh, well, we would not have taken off if we didn't have the highest level support within the business. But beyond that, I would say it was our technology wing. By definition, a shared service can be located just about anywhere. it's an offshoring situation. So we look to the technology infrastructure and the ability to perform as if we were in the location to which we're serving. So I would look to our ISIT teams who have been instrumental in making this happen.
So you mentioned technology, and that leads me to my second question, which is, we are facing the COVID situation, which is unfortunately a pandemic worldwide, and this has led to changes in our working habits. Within Thales, can you expect a more virtual shared service centers, more working from home? What can you tell us about the future?
Yeah, absolutely. It was always something that we had in mind to do. But because we started from nil and are going up into the sort of numbers you've seen here, we thought that it would be something that we would do when we got closer to a steady state, because bringing in groups of new people, training them, it's so easy to do that in situ. And also you help to have them build up and be part of your own cultural environment, because culture of how we're going to do things is important as well. Yeah, I think we can say that we had to do it a little quicker than planned. We had already the culture within the office where we were mobile within the office. We had already made that conscious decision. Laptops, mobile phones, no desk phones, things like that. So people really had that flexibility. And we have seamlessly moved to remote working. It surprised me. I'm actually extremely proud of the way the teams have managed. There was a little bit of training to be done on supporting people with managing a remote teams. For instance, we do the daily scrums. That's now a virtual affair, but actually it kind of broke down a few barriers, because you can't take somebody, in complete seriousness if their dog or their child has just run by. Suddenly we're all human. We're all at the same level. And I think actually we've benefited, and we plan to continue to some degree a remote working balance. Absolutely.
Thank you, Deborah, so much for all of your insights, and good luck for the future.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And now I have questions for Fernando. Please, if you could join us. So, Fernando, Nova has just been recognized again as one of the best universities in Europe by the Financial Times. What is the secret behind this? What have the Portuguese universities done in the past years to put them head-to-head with the best universities in Europe?
Well, that's a great and difficult question, right? I can talk from my experience. So I've been associated dean of my school for 9 years, and what I can talk about is my own experience. And I think that the biggest challenge is to put in place, as in everything in life probably, to put in place the appropriate incentives. And if you're able to do that, even the university will transform. And so I think that's the first part, is the ability to put in place the appropriate incentives so that people, in this particular case, tenure professors and professors in general, feel motivated to work a little harder, make an additional effort, participate in more initiatives, and so on and so forth. And so that would be the first part. The second part, which I think is very important, is that to be in this competition, you cannot only have professors. You need to have support staff which is competent and able to do all the other things that go behind the school and need to be done in order to be in these rankings. And that's a very important job, a very significant role that in our case helped us a lot in this topic. Finally, I think the last thing is to be open to change, in the sense that to be open to society, understand the needs of society, and be committed to be a positive factor for change and really, let's say, incarnate the role of the school that is going to help our companies and our society to move forward. So I'm not sure I've answered your question appropriately, but that's what came to mind at this point. At this point.
Yeah. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you for being here today. It was not indeed an easy question to ask. And I'll invite Gabriel for another quick question. We're just coming to the end. We have a few more questions to Gabriel and to Mr. Castro Henriques. And don't forget to access the study. You also have the possibility through our website to visit. We'll invite everyone at home. Any questions, any doubts, just visit the banner that will be available through our website. Gabriel, so IDC has a strong knowledge of the IT sector in Portugal. And according to the experience you had with all those centers of excellence and software development centers that are available now in the country, what are the major trends you are witnessing, and how has the country been performing in that field?
Yeah, what do we see in the market? It's a clear trend for growth in specific areas like cloud computing, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, augmented reality, virtual reality, blockchain development, and all these areas are based on software development, and we saw in this study we did that in the past 4 years a lot of IT companies are moving to Portugal to really establish their business centers and in these areas. So at IDC perspective, it's clear that it will continue to grow in the next 5-10 years, and I believe that Portugal has all conditions to have more business centers and to support the actual business centers growth in Portugal. So a bright future, I'd say.
Okay, thank you, Gabriel, for your thoughts on this, and I'll now invite Mr. Castro Henriques for the final round of questions.
Thank you.
We'll not, of course, have the possibility to place all the questions that we have received throughout this event, and but rest assured, we will answer them by email to all of you guys that sent us the questions. And so, last but not least, Mr. Castro Henriques. It's always difficult for someone to interview his chairman, so I'll try not to place any difficult questions.
I hope it'll be an easy question.
Anyway, Mr. Castro, so AICEP took the initiative to carry out this study in partnership with the IDC and Nova University, as it was a need felt not only by us here at the agency, but also by the industry. What is AICEP's role in attracting new investors to this, in supporting the already existing ones, and how can we, the agency, help the process decision and the settling in to make it smooth and easy, like Thales just described their process?
Well, exactly. As smooth as possible and as many as possible. Probably I'll start by explaining our process and our focus in terms of commercial and, well, basically general support to companies that want to establish themselves and that also operate in Portugal. So all of these services are obviously applicable not only to newcomers, so to all of those that are our prospective customers and are thinking of moving to Portugal or considering moving to Portugal. But this also applies to all the customers that we have, and we also work also with industrial customers that we have here that diversify the type of activity over here. Actually, Thales, we have a long-standing activity with them in the country in several areas. Thales is also a strong investor in several of the sectors here in Portugal. So when Deborah moved with her team over here, there was already quite a lot of industrial and business activity here in Portugal. So AICEP's focus, and I think this is very, very important to understand, because it's one of the aspects that our customers value the most. We really are focused in giving you the best possible answer. And what I mean by that is very, very simple, is that you share with us and you give us your requirements. You tell us what really will be the drivers of the decision, and we will find the best solution for you, and we'll provide all the information that we have. If we don't have it, be sure that we'll be looking for it and we will find the best possible information. But above all, our service really is based on this. We are not prescriptive. We are providing a service that will give you the best location for the conditions that you shared with us. And this is very, very important because we think that if you don't have the best choice in Portugal, well, first, you might not even choose Portugal, which is obviously terrible. But above all, we want businesses to be sustainable here in Portugal. And that means that they are in a competitive location. They are in a location where they can expand, just like Thales and all the other customers that we've had here. And that means really finding the right glove or the right location for your activity. So our focus really is client-driven and driven by the key criteria that the customers are focused on. Now, how do we do this? Well, it's very, very simple. We start by providing information, general information. We start interacting with you. And then we set up fact-finding visits, like actually we have here. Nowadays, many of these visits are obviously digital, but as Deborah mentioned, this was pretty seamless and it started working. I mean, let me even share this with the audience. During the pandemic, during the confinement, actually Portugal and the team, I salute them and congratulate them again on this, was able actually to bring 8 new businesses to Portugal, which represent more than 700 jobs. And this really shows that, we were able to change our operation. So these fact-finding visits nowadays have obviously a digital component, but they are also done physically. I think there were visits today and there will be further visits next week. So business keeps on going. And then we try to find, a small set of options for your location. And then obviously the customer chooses and sees how competitive it is compared to other solutions. And our experience tells us that for most of these service activities, especially for the higher value-added segments of these activities, usually they choose Portugal and they usually choose one of the locations that we identified for them. On top of that, we also have, let's say, an advocacy standing regarding our customers, and we will find if any incentives or any further support is actually applicable to their activity. So basically, when you look at AICEP, you can look at an agency that will try to defend your interests at its best. That's our job, and that's why I think many people are also choosing Portugal. So that's what we'll keep on doing. I hope I answered most of the question.
And thank you for the added pressure in getting more business into the country. And I have a couple more questions, if you could bear just a few more moments with us. If we are to look back 24 months and compare the country as it is today, what competitive aspects are better now, today, than 24 months ago, and why?
So when you're asking 24 months ago,
2 years.
This 2 years ago and pre-pandemia, let's put it like that.
Yes.
So let's give this answer with a two-step approach. I think the thing that has been, improve and keeps on improving continuously, and Fernando from Nova MS really, I think, gave a very, very clear picture of the country. I mean, our pool of talent keeps on growing year on year, keeps on improving. Our universities keep on having higher scores and higher ranking positions in the international rankings. So this is something that has kept on improving. And that also explains, I think, you'll see that the large share of this talent, this was a bet that basically Portugal did in the early 90s. And obviously it takes 20 years to have this talent to come out of the system. And you can clearly see this. And if you see the data that Gabriel shared, we see that in the past 4 years, basically the sector doubled almost in size. Almost 50% of the centers showed up in the last 4 years. And I think what we see is that, with this recurring talent that comes out every year, with further foreign students that want to stay in Portugal, I think this is clearly something that has improved. The other thing is the world has changed quite a lot in the past 4 years, or at least I compare that when I started this job 6 years ago. The world was much, I can't say safer, but at least more stable. And so the fact that Portugal is the third safest and most peaceful location in the world I think just brings value to Portugal. And this is more and more valued, the stability. And now on the second step, so post-COVID, I think these two factors really are key. So Portugal, and we've seen even during the pandemic, the way that the whole population, all of the national institutions, even the cooperation between the government and political opposition, how all of it worked in sync, really shows that, Portuguese people value stability. That doesn't mean that they don't like technology. On the contrary, they like innovation and to keep on improving. But we definitely are focused on stability and also on quality of life. And that's good, I'd say, in two areas. The first one is obviously it's safe and stable for you to operate here. And I think Deborah showed that clearly. The second thing is it's also a great location for expats, because we do understand that all of these activities also require talent from abroad to be here. I mean, you can't find, and there is no area where you will always find all of the talent in only a single place. And so it is also very, very important to be able to attract talent from abroad to live in. I think that most expats, when they hear there is a possibility to live in Portugal, usually it is met with great satisfaction. So at least that's what I hear. So I think these two factors have improved, one of them intrinsically and the other one comparatively. And the pandemic just basically increased the relevance of this dimension.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. And last but not least, can we expect that the northern part of the country will witness an increase in business service centers despite the competition that Lisbon, as the capital and typical beacon for projects of this nation, has? Can we expect cities like Braga, Bragança, Vila Real still untapped to welcome more of these projects?
I think the figures already show that, to be very, very clear. I mean, you see a 40% growth in shared service in centers in Porto. You see a more than 30% growth outside of these locations. And if you see that, most of them really are on the higher half, on the top half of the country. So I'd say from Coimbra north, going to the north. I think most of our audience today is actually either prospective customers or they don't know very well the country. So I won't go into specific cities, smaller cities, but to be very fair, I think this is just natural. It's just normal. Portugal is a fairly small country. We have a 10 million population. Our two main cities distance themselves by 300 kilometers, which in global distance is basically nothing. And so this has grown, I'd say, in following our airport locations and infrastructures. Some of them started settling on our largest airports, then started settling on the second largest airport. And on top of that, you'll see that there is a huge pool of talent and a huge area north of the airport in Porto, where you'll be able to find great locations to set up your business. So answering your question, I think we are already seeing that. And I think this will basically just keep on spreading through the country. But at the end of the day, we're a very small country, so it's just normal.
Thank you, Mr. Castro Henriques. Thank you all for being here today with us. Hope you have enjoyed this session. Again, our apologies for the small glitch at the beginning, but we are quite sure and confident that the message that was passed on is of interest. As I said before...
We hope so.
Yes, I hope so. We all hope so. And the agency, if you may allow me, is here to support, as our chairman said. And please send us your emails, send us your questions. We'll be more than delighted to help you guys choosing Portugal as your next location. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you very much.